Welcome back, everybody, to The Creative Moment, Season 5, Episode 6. Just over halfway through Season 5 now. It is a cold one out there, folks. The high today is...
-7.
Yeah.
-7.
And the low is like -18. Hope you're staying warm out there.
And that's without wind chill.
Without wind chill.
That's
And
without wind chill.
I almost wore a jersey today. Solidarity. Anyway, I'm Dante Bullhauer, photographer. Jamie Bullhauer's a writer. We're both creatives. Creativity plays a large part in how we survive. And we're here to talk to you today, again, for the 56th time.
Yep.
Got the new flavor on, by the way.
All right.
I got blood orange. Just, All right.
I like blood orange.
Yeah. So is KK. She steals all of them. Anyway.
No.
It's a gloomy time of year.
We've been locked in the house for...
We have had more snow here in our current, in Nebraska, more snow in this last week than we did all of last winter. I saw 14.9 inches in a week.
Wow.
Which is crazy. It has, there's some cabin fever that comes with it. And so today we thought kind of how to combat that, what to do with boredom. And because as creatives, I feel like the typical creative, your mind is kind of always spinning or turning new ideas, churning up stuff. And so when you're not, we've talked about this before, how new experiences breed creativity. When you are looking at the same four walls every day
for a couple days,
almost a week. Would you have 3 snow days this week? Monday, Tuesday, Friday? Yeah, so you're pulled up in the same spot. It can be hard to draw inspiration from that, and it can be hard to just fight boredom. I've worked a little bit, not as much as I should. But
studies have shown that boredom is actually really good, and that we're losing the ability to not fight it, maybe, but to have it spark its own muse, and instead of getting rid of it in some usually mindless manner.
Yeah, because now everybody is begging so hard for your attention from so many different places that it's hard to be bored, because it's so easy to open up your phone, click this app, scroll. Like, I think it is getting increasingly hard for people to just sit and just be bored, be with their thoughts.
Yep.
And so when I was younger, I would say in the summertime, I'm bored. And every single time he would be like, write a book, or read a book, write a letter, blah, blah, blah. And I'd be like, no, I'll just sit
Make
here.
A game on GameStar Mechanic.
No, I'll just go have some Pop-Tarts. Yeah, that's actually...
you would eat, which is also one of the things people do when they're bored.
I have a problem with that.
I
have a huge problem. I have gummy bears in there that I'm snacking on all day. But yeah, so how do you personally, what is your way to deal with boredom that you find you most commonly rely on or revert to? So
in one sense, again, I do actually, being bored, I think is actually a good thing. And in fact, I think a lot of people, even when you do pick up your phone or you get distracted, after a while you end up being, it's like that just doesn't, because I think boredom in and of itself, there's two things. One, you already mentioned it, actually just being alone, allowing yourself to get centered, even calm, peaceful, not be on all the time. And boredom has that feel to it. It's just like, well, I'm not doing anything. I got to do something. And so that is a bonus for your mental health, even your health, because your body cannot be on all the time. It cannot be going, adrenaline. It needs recovery time with that. But I think there's a special kind of creativity that comes from when you actually get into that state or you are relaxed, and those ideas start to foster up a little bit. It's just like, oh, I haven't done this, or I haven't I had that idea. And again, here's where it is tough not because like on my note app on my phone is where I jot down a lot of ideas, because I can just voice it in. Like if I'm walking or if I'm driving, or something, it's just like I can do that. And so some ideas are sitting there, And then it's like, okay, I'm bored. And then you pick up the phone and you got to check that and you want to go, oh, well. And you have to fight that. But that's where I think you get to go back to some ideas that you've had just sitting that you just never got time, or you've forgotten because life gets so busy. Yep. You forgot that they're there. And then you're like, oh, that was such, and then go to do that, but you got to fight that one connection because as soon as you pick up your phone, you're going to want to check if anybody responded, if any new things. And honestly, I think I've been doing a better job at that. I've just been now just putting it away. Like I'll go put it by my bedside lamp, even if I'm out in the kitchen, because it's just like if I don't have it, then I don't.
Very rarely is there a life or death situation where you're like, I need to have this on me at all times. So I got this Apple Watch for Christmas, right?
Yeah.
And now, so what Apple does is now my phone doesn't vibrate, my watch does. And so I have it on all day. It's almost impossible for me to miss a notification. Almost impossible. And so that was one of my goals this year, was to be in a different room than my phone more.
What? You just took it with you.
Yeah, so, but it does help in a sense because I can see this notification and be like, okay, that's not dire, and not have to go get it. Yeah. But I still do look at it. It's counteractive. But I didn't expect it, for the record. So, but the phone thing is super interesting. It's really, I have a TikTok about boredom, the mundane parts of life, by the way, talking about how if all we will like remember or appreciate are the big, new, fun, once in a lifetime experiences, then like what's the point? I just kind of pose the question, what's the point of all the day-to-day life stuff? And sometimes I think kind of my point of the question was, I think sometimes we mistake peace and boredom a little bit, and we don't give ourselves time to be at peace because we're so plugged in, like I have to be doing something, this, that, the other. If we're just bored, or we don't have anything to do, and you just kind of sit and just kind of like be where your feet are, is a common quote. I think that boredom can turn into reflectiveness and peace, where you just start thinking about kind of your life and where you're at and all this. And a lot of times when I do that, when I'll be bored and I'll just be kind of sitting on the couch, I'm like, okay, let's just take a moment and just like reflect a little bit. And usually that turns into gratitude towards where I'm at most of the time, except for last fall. I had to be on watching TikTok all day. It just turns into, most time, gratitude. And so I think that we do not give ourselves time, and it's not I think pressure is the wrong word, but it is kind of a pressure to always be in the know, stay current, know what all your friends are doing, what they're posting.
Because I think and again, we're just talking, that it actually is a false sense of action. Because I'm scrolling, I'm reading, I'm not saying that you're not taking, but it's really not action. You're not doing anything. You're watching other people live their lives and feeling like you are living your life. Yeah. And that false sense gets trapped. Like everybody sees it. Everybody sees it. It's not, and everybody knows it too. They just will not connect it to that. Oh, well, my use of the phone or the screen or being bored is not the same as what I see other people doing, and that's just false too.
Yep. There's I forget what book it was, but it talks about the psychology of, I think it was The Magic of Thinking Big, but it talks about how you should prioritize your day, and if you start out by doing like menial tasks, small things, you will get the like dopamine hit of making progress and like being productive. Mm-hmm. And so it will stop you from doing the big important stuff because you're like, oh, I can just do this little task, this little task, and it will give you the same gratification as the big tasks. And I think it falls in the same line with social media, or just not being like having to be wired in all the time, is it feels like you're fulfilled, happy, and just small amount here, small amount there, when at the end you're actually not really accomplishing anything. You're not producing anything that will further your life, really. You're just kind of ignoring your boredom, putting a little wall over it, and not actually doing something meaningful.
Yeah. And the boredom and peace also takes time. It takes time. And you feel...
In a world where time is increasingly like...
Yeah.
Everybody just wants now.
Yeah. And so that's the other... I think that's also part of the scary part is like it's... to get to gratitude or to... And my idea, sometimes the muse will hit, but it takes... it's like you feel time slow down to a degree, and then all of a sudden it feels heavier.
Yep.
Like it's just like, oh, well, I should be, but in fact it isn't. I like it, but it feels that way. It feels so much different because even when you scroll the next post, you feel that something has happened.
Yep.
And time I've done something. And in that sense of boredom or peacefulness or reflection, you just are in the moment, which though, because we talked about flow, because that's how you can actually though get into flow. If you do end up being sparked to do something, like it's just deeper, it's more enthralled, you're not distracted because you've already shed a little bit for a little while that distraction of the outside world. And I think, as you had mentioned about yours leading to gratitude, for me, I usually, if I'm bored or I'm usually like having an idea process. And my latest blog actually is an example of that. It maybe didn't quite turn out just the way I wanted it, but I had been thinking on this idea for a while. I didn't write any rough draft, or anything, but I've just been sitting there and just like, okay. And it was inspired by Kevin Garnett's A to Z book, Design, and how he defined the words in that book, and I was, that's just part of the connection of it. But in my times of downtime, it's like that's what I thought about. Instead of rough drafting, I just let it sit in my head, thought about these are the words, this is what I thought, and so those moments of quietness allow me to produce. It's a little bit longer this time. It's a little bit more personal and everything. But it's like, okay, yeah, I like it.
Yeah. So like the reason I made that mundane boredom TikTok was because I was bored. I didn't have much to do. It was just it was a little transition period between like state events. It was like either softball. It was 2 state events. So I was like, okay, I'm kind of taking it easy this week. And so I just kind of sat there and I'm like, I don't really know what to do today. And I'm like, well, so I started scrolling through my little journal over there and I was like, here is my ideas about like TikToks I want to make, or short form videos. Basically, I like making little short stuff. And it was like a video about the mundane experiences, basically the message I made. And then I kept thinking, how do I want to portray that? What makes it feel like time is kind of in a loop? And then I did this with a video that I never posted back in like 2020 or something, which I kind of want to talk about because that's when I was most creative and I was most bored. But it was a match cut idea where I do the same action and just change outfits and then cut up the frame so it looks like I'm just like appearing in a different outfit, but the movement is smooth. And I'm like, that is exactly what I want. And if I had just like kind of sat there and been like, oh, I'm kind of bored and done nothing with it, it wouldn't have sparked that idea. If I was like, well, I'll just go on my phone and scroll.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have been able to kind of create and form that idea and execute on that video.
Yeah. And it's a different type of muse. It's a different type of muse, and I'm sadly, I don't think too many people get to that. And yeah, that's where I'd go like write a letter, read a book, which also if you're bored, pick up a book. Like meaning that as one of the New Year's resolutions was to learn, have one of your books ready and just like, oh, okay, I'm just gonna, and because also I think in that state when you're there and you do creativity or you start to read or you just start to journal or so, like I just think it's a different level of production that comes out of that. And when you're reading, you like, it's more in depth. It's not like, oh, I'm reading for 5 minutes because waiting to flip the chicken nuggets or something.
Yep.
It's more like, oh, okay, I'm just, and it's an important part, both as you had mentioned about being at peace and finding time to reflect and allowing a different level of muse to hit you, to find time to either, maybe it is just disconnect and maybe you don't get bored as we're talking about, but in this case of being locked in the house for a couple of days, there's been moments but to feel that and get back to, I think, a more central creative foundation that we're missing out on. We're just missing out on it.
Yeah. And I think a lot of why we are always just trying to be so occupied, honestly, is fear of facing like the reality of life. Because when you're scrolling Instagram or whatever, you're disconnecting yourself from the moment. You're disconnecting
and a lot of the
yourself
times
from
it's just funny stuff. Like it's meant to entertain. Like people are not consuming anything that challenges them. And that's another aspect as you reinforce we're not facing some of our more tougher things, which lead to some very powerful creation though.
Yeah. And so it's easier to just kind of block out and not really recognize that fear, that moment, than it is to just sit there and say, you know what, here's where I'm happy, here's where I'm unhappy. What are we going to do? What are we going to actively do to fix this? Because I guarantee the answer will never be get on your phone and look at tweets after the Husker game. That never works. It's funny, but it never works. And so it is hard for a lot of different reasons to just sit there, be with your thoughts. But once you kind of face that fear, it's really not, most of the time, it's really not scary. It's just subconsciously kind of
But it's emotional.
Yes.
And that's the other part of being connected is like we don't feel our full range of emotions, which I think is a disservice also. Because again, that's sometimes where the most powerful creative things come from. And the depth of our existence is so much more than what is displayed in the everyday and on social media and stuff. But too many people live in that shallow aspect.
Yeah. So a lot of TikToks I see per my algorithm are like kind of a trend of seeing life cinematically or whatever. And some of them are dumb, some of them aren't. But a lot of times it's just kind of like little or smaller moments, like waiting in line at a Freddy's or a fast food joint, sitting at a table and just kind of people watching, like just kind of being in those bored moments, those mundane moments. And while watching that, you feel what, like, they convey the emotion so well. You feel, yeah, it's like a peaceful thing. But in that moment where most of the time when I'm sitting in line at a fast food place, just pull out my phone, see, like, just wait to get to the front of the line. But you go back and you watch a video where, like, it's like appreciating those moments. You're like, that makes me feel more peaceful than it does. Like, I just need to get to the next thing that was dumb.
But ironically, they're using social media.
Yeah, it's a paradox.
It is a paradox. Though, again, we talk about certain things. Like your senior year of basketball, like, I really stopped taking pictures. Now, Mom did it.
No.
Mom...
I told her to stop.
But in fact, he let her have his nice camera. Okay, but
there were not a lot that I saved. No offense, Mom. I appreciate
she still has it.
And you got the dunk photo perfectly.
Yeah, and she enjoyed that. Like, that was her type of thing, like it is her way of doing. But I just like, and even now with your younger sister playing and stuff, like I take pictures. I still take pictures, okay? But then I put my phone away and I'm just there. I'm just, in the moment and seeing, your sister smile when she hits a free throw or just, and because no matter what, hey, those pictures should spark the emotions that I had at the moment. The pictures themselves shouldn't be the moment.
There's like I don't know if I'll quote it exactly, but it's like, it kind of relates to friends. You know how good of friends you are with people by how little photos you take with them, because you're so carried away with the moment that it's not like, oh, let's take a picture for Instagram type thing. Like when I went to Florida, I did not take that many photos of just like, oh, we're eating whatever, because I was just enjoying the breakfast or the dinner or whatever. And that is a very powerful thing that it's becoming harder and harder to unlock because we have the watch, notification, the phone, the computer. Just sitting there and just being where your feet are is increasingly more rare. Like, I would be very, very shocked, like, if I tried to hang out with a group of people and we were all like, let's just put our phones over here. Let's just leave our phones in the car or something. It just wouldn't happen. No. Everybody, like, as soon as someone gets that flick of boredom, like if there's a moment of silence while I'm talking with a friend, pull the phone out. Okay, what's on Twitter? I literally I'm guilty of it, for the record.
So am I. We're not saying that we're not. We're just recognizing it.
Yeah. And so I'll just pull the phone out. I'll look at like one tweet and just turn it off because then someone will say something. Like that's completely, one, disrespectful. Two, removing yourself from the moment for a momentary thing that didn't even benefit me at all. So it's a tricky thing to kind of focus on because it is a weird subconscious. I don't think I'm addicted to my phone, but it is just a subconscious thing. It's just a force of habit. You just do it. You just negate your boredom or your like in the moment stance to remove yourself. And it's just a weird creation that we've caused as a society to breed that.
Yeah. And there's like all kinds of and we'll find our way to, I mean, honestly, our technology the way it is still just over 18 years now or something like that. I don't remember when the first iPhone was, like 2007,
something like that.
So I mean, in all honesty, it is still very relatively new in that regard,
and it's not going away. It's going to progressively get worse.
But it also hasn't changed now either. Like, I know Apple, everybody keeps coming up with new cameras, basically, for the phone, but there's nothing new. Like, I think this is it. We've got the watch, I get that, but that's another, that's the end of the technology. I think the next revolutionary thing is going to be crazy, whatever it might be, but we've now had the same phone 10 years maybe, with that. So anyway,
it's
this snow day.
Yeah,
I wasn't really bored though either. Like I was bored, but we played some games. We did, I shoveled the driveway because we don't have a snowblower, so I shoveled the driveway 5 times, I think. Yeah.
That'll keep you from being bored.
Yeah.
It'll wish you were bored. But yeah, didn't super relate to creativity, but we did touch on how it can breed that, like, just to put a dot on the I. During COVID, obviously, had nothing to do, nowhere to go. And I've talked about this before, did like a new creative photo shoot type thing every day. Because I was so bored, I'm like, what would be cool? I'm like, what if we just put like the basketball a basketball hat in our hoop with the net and just made a little stupid 30-second video about it. It was insane. I think it's still kind of cool.
Yeah.
Not really. But, and then like the next day I did like an apple shooter. I was just trying to stir the muse, just do some cool stuff. And it worked. Like it taught me a lot. It was fun and fulfilling, and it kept that drive going for the next day. I'm like, oh, what cool thing are we going to make today? And so that would not have happened if like there was no COVID and I just kept through the school week.
Yeah.
That would have never happened because there would have been things occupying my time. And so I think carving out just like once a week, not like meditation, but just like 30 minutes, just kind of put all your electronics away, just kind of sit there and just like be with your thoughts and think about whatever it is, creativity, life, anything, and just feel those emotions, just feel the depth of those emotions, because in our day-to-day lives we don't really unlock them as often as we should.
No.
So yeah, Creative Moments Season 5 Episode 6 in the books. Hoping for some better weather here soon. This was not what I wanted to come back from Florida for. But yeah, that was our kind of rainy day podcast, if I would throw it back to the Don and Dev show. So hope you guys liked it. Again, we're on Spotify if you're in the car and just want to listen to it. We're on YouTube if you have time to sit down and watch it. We're on Apple Podcasts as well, anywhere you get your podcast. We both have Instagram and Twitter. He posted a selfie from his shoveling experiences if you want to go check that out. He also has a blog. I have a photo page. Tons of places that you can find more of our creative endeavors. Here we just kind of talk about them, though you can actually go consume them, and we'll link all that jazz in the bio. So hope you guys enjoyed this edition of The Creative Moment. We'll see you guys in a couple weeks.